Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kathleen McCadden Benjamin, and I'm the Chief of Staff here at HCR. You are one of the many communities that have submitted either letters of intent or passed or provided some kind of documentation that you were interested in becoming a pro-housing community. I am going to introduce my colleagues and Karis Rasmussen, who I'd like to thank. She's our associate counsel here at the agency and my right hand. She helped organize this meeting. Thank you, Karis. And I'm going to kick it off to Kate Van Tassel now, who's the Director of Special Initiatives, to walk you through a presentation about the pro-housing communities, the designation, and about some of the more technical aspects of the application. Kate?
Hi, thanks, Kat. I guess it's technically afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I am, as you can see, we are a small but scrappy team. And so, as I'm sure that most of you guys are, so when you're, I know that a lot of folks in local governments are running miracles with the small staff. So I appreciate that we are also that for you guys to appreciate that we are also super excited to kick off this program. It's a new experience. Okay, so today what I'm going to do is run through just a real quick overview of HCR and then kind of why we're doing the pro housing program. Just a quick intro. I probably will go pretty quickly through that because most of the people here have already, you guys are already interested and engaged, but so I'll go through that quickly. And then we'll go through some of the details on the template specifically, and we'll definitely leave a lot of time for questions. I think we wanted to make sure that people have the opportunity to ask specific questions. Okay, so hopefully most of you on the people on this webinar know this, but if not, we are New York State Homes and Community Renewal, HCR. We're the state affordable housing agency. Our mission is to build, preserve, and protect affordable housing and increase home ownership throughout the state. We're actually a combination of 6 different agencies together to do a number of different things. But in order to streamline the provision of housing throughout New York State, we combine kind of all of our different funding and regulatory efforts into one overarching agency. One of the ways I like to describe HCR is that we function like a bank. So we fund a lot of development projects and we fund a lot of grants as well, so we're kind of like a foundation, and then we also regulate people. That is a very high level view, and if you have more specific questions, I'm happy to go back. As I said, we fund projects throughout the state. This is our asset map. This is on our HCR website. So we fund new multifamily and single family homes, manufactured homes, senior homes throughout the state. So we're pretty geographically diverse. So again, why are we here? Why did the governor create the Pro Housing Communities Program? So, what we found last year, the governor did propose the housing compact for the same reason, is that the New York State needs new every types and all types of housing. We heard a lot about this when we were talking last year and continuing into this year, of that we are looking for starter homes for new adults, kids coming out of college, growing homes for growing families to expand into, for smaller homes for seniors to downsize into. We heard that a lot, that people want to stay in the neighborhoods where they raise their families, but there's not enough smaller places for them to move into. But the challenge is that there is a statewide housing shortage, and then it's impacting renters and home buyers. So it affects the New York City metro, where home prices and rents are up significantly over the past number of years. But it also is affecting the rest of state, and that perhaps is potentially a little more new or set somewhat different than it has been in the past. Although, as you can see from this chart, the rents and home prices are also up throughout the state. And so one of the challenges that we're bumping into is that there's a mismatch between our jobs and our housing. And that's beginning to create challenges for New York State's future. So the decade before the pandemic, we created over 1.2 million jobs, which is great. We want to continue to create jobs again throughout the state, but we only built a little over 400,000 new homes. And one of the things we also heard, and I'm sure you guys could tell me more details when we get to the interactive piece, is that we hear from a lot of employers that one of the challenges is in recruiting people is that there aren't enough homes for people to find. So, where are we starting? We're starting with the Pro Housing Communities Program to help us start to address this housing shortage. And so it's providing support for municipalities such as yourselves who are taking steps to address this. We are looking to as our initial incentive to participate, municipalities to complete the certification that we'll go through will get a preference and scoring for certain or specific discretionary grants. And so again, you guys have already applied, but just so I won't go into this in a huge amount of detail, but we wanted to explain, why should my community apply? And a lot of this is to support a diverse housing market, which improves quality of life. It'll boost our local efforts, and in the longer term, as I said, we're still we're learning, we're flying the plane we're building the plane as we fly it, so we're learning as we go. But our goal is certainly that we can help communities help each other in terms of boosting local efforts and other creative solutions, as well as getting that eligibility. So again, everybody on this call, I believe, or if not, the application requirements is to start with a letter of intent, which you guys have all done, and that is to help us just track who's interested, and also be able to start developing that contact and ways to help submit the information. We are asking to submit the key background information, and that's what we're going to focus on a bit today about the GIS map, the zoning code analysis, and the planning permitting analysis. And then to complete the application, for localities that have already been building, we want to give credit to folks that have already done their part in growing their housing stock. So if they submit this information and they have previously done that growth, then they would qualify, and they would show that through the submission. Or localities can their local governing body or entity can submit and execute the Pro Housing Community Resolution. And this format is on our website. This is based on a similar process to the Climate Smart Communities that NYSERDA runs, which again, much of this program is based similarly on that. And also with the similar plan that they started off relatively straightforward and simple, and then we're able to expand what their options were over time. But the way to qualify for that is to pass that resolution. And so what are the deadlines? And so our for the initial designation, we're accepting them on a rolling basis. And so we're almost at the 90 days. I believe it might be 60. For the very first people, we had a few folks who were super enthusiastic and applied immediately, but we are still continuing to get applications over time, even just this past week. And then we will provide that list of the qualifying localities to the agencies providing the grants, which is a number of different state agencies. And so then by the end of the first quarter next year, so the end of March, in order to maintain that certification, then we are asking people to submit updated permit information. And so for the previous year. Now, as that overlaps, if there is, if you end up submitting your permit information next month, there might not, it might be up to date. And so you can just let us know that is up to date in the next year. But over time, say 3 years from now, we would want to continue that. That's part of the goal of the program, is to be able to see patterns and trends in our permitting throughout the state. And so this is a list of programs that are eligible from Department of State, HCR, ESD, and DOT. There may be other programs in the future. Again, this is kind of our first round and first year. And then just a few minor detail or minor information is that it is only eligible for municipalities. And so that's one of the reasons we asked for both the letter of intent and the resolution, that it's not necessarily, even though nonprofits may also be eligible for some of these grants, not all, but some of the grants, but the municipalities are the ones that are eligible for the pro housing certification, but it's not a prerequisite. So if you still would want to apply to the DRI or the Long Island Investment Fund, for example, you wouldn't need to apply to the Pro Housing Community Program first, but if you do, and so you won't be penalized, but you would get a bump if you do it. And so again, how do we get started? And we'll get into this. You've already decided that your community wants to apply, so we've gotten the letter of intent. That's fabulous. And then it's ideally selecting a coordinator, and then working with the relevant departments to collect the zoning and permit information. And the reason we're a little high level on that is, as you can imagine, or as we've learned, there are over 1,500 different localities in New York State, which is a lot. Um, and every locality kind of has their own different process for collecting the zoning and permit information. So we were happy to help. We've hopefully helped some of you answering questions. Again, we're a little thin on the ground, and so I apologize if we haven't got back to you on any specific questions. So, but we hope to answer that today if you're on the line. But if not, we promise we will get to everything in our email inbox. Because of those are specific, you know, and sadly, there's not something that applies to every single locality, but we're willing to work with everyone. And then if you work with our team, you may have got an email from myself or Karis. We're using a program called Procorum, which allows you to directly upload the information for those requirements. So just as another resource that hopefully you have seen already, but if not, to let you know, we did on the governor's website create a housing stats dashboard. And so this is from US Census data for every village, town, city in New York State. There's a few little quirks in the data, but in general, it's most of them. So this is information that is submitted that we got from the census. One of the reasons, so this could be a good starting point. One of the reasons that we did want to do the Pro Housing Communities program, apologies, is that what we heard when we were going around last year is that sometimes this census data might not be up to date, so that localities might actually have permitted more housing than what the census data shows. And so we did want to give an opportunity for people to update that, even if they hadn't updated the census, to let us know, for example, that, you know, this is the village of Tarrytown, for example. And so last year that says they didn't release any housing permits, which, you know, maybe they did, but it didn't make it into the census, or they forgot the form that year. Either way, you know, we will take the state's, or I'm sorry, the locality's word or what the permits were. We just wanted to, but this is on the flip side, this is a helpful resource. And again, the other place to find this is the link to that. I know that this is not technical, but honestly, I usually just Google New York State Housing Dashboard and it's faster. And trying to track down the website, it has good SEO, but we'll make sure that you get this presentation so you can get the direct link as well. And as well as similar to our website on the Pro Housing Communities website. So this website has some FAQ. It has the templates for the programs. And as some of you may have learned, you know, again, a few bumps in the road, we realized we had set up the templates in one way that didn't necessarily work with older versions of Excel, but we were able to fix that. And so the documents that are on the website should be the most recent and have some of the updated documents. There are also some cells on an earlier version that weren't accessible, but we are hopefully, and you know, and as we find new things and refine that template, we will let y'all know that that is what's happening there. So I might pause real quick. So the next section of what we're going to talk about is going through, and some of you may have already seen this already, but going through filling out the template itself and kind of both why we're doing it and how that works. Hopefully you have been able to download from the website. We did have a kind of instruction document, a Word document that helps, hopefully helps fill that out, but I might pause here for initial questions before we get into on the overall program, before we get into specifics. So Karis is going to help. Thank you, Karis. Going to help us answer the questions. So we have one raised hand so far. Or a few. Okay, so Karis is asking us to put the questions in the chat. And again, thank you for I am still, despite our later, despite our, you know, how many years on working on WebEx, you know, the multitasking. And so that's why Karis is here to help, trying to read multiple screens at one time. Okay, Karis, so all that to say is that I don't know if I can see the chat and share at the same time. So
I'll read them out as they come in, and none so far.
Okay. We have a few folks that raised their hands. I don't know if you want to put that in the chat. Maybe if you want to put your questions in the chat to start, and we will have some interaction as after we kind of run through the template. Okay. So, excuse me. So to go through the zoning template again, so just from zooming out for a step, for those of you that don't know, the New York State is in the process of improving our publicly available GIS mapping layers. And so this is an example, this is actually from New York City, but this is an example of a zoning map that is publicly accessible in New York City so that any resident can access it and zoom in and learn about their own zoning for their locality or for their neighborhood, for their block. I absolutely use this when I was looking for an apartment, but I'm a dorky planner, so maybe that is not necessarily for everybody. However, the long-term goal is to have a version of the possibly not quite this detailed, but a version of this for the entire state. And that will allow residents and policymakers, again, to look at patterns in different places throughout the state, to be able to compare different localities and how they've chosen to make changes or not. And look at and be able to share best practices in order to guide that future policy recommendation. So it is who should fill it out. And so it's designed, particularly the zoning template is designed for someone that is somewhat familiar with the municipality zoning code. And again, as I said before, each locality tends to have different, types of structures. So if they have a planning department, it's most likely the right staff will be in that department. Other folks might have a planning board or a code department or just the town council. It does depend, but and some places don't even have a zoning code. And so that is not entirely, that's not too many, but there's definitely a few places that have that. So if you don't have one, then you should just contact us directly and we'll figure out how to adjust it. But most places do have zoning. And so the template is designed to go through the format once, or go through the zoning code once, enter all the information. And unless there are changes, then it wouldn't have to be done overall. And so this is loosely based on a project called the National Zoning Atlas. So if you are curious, if we do have fellow planners on the line, if you're curious about what this could look like, Connecticut has a zoning atlas. I believe New Hampshire just published theirs. Possibly Idaho. I forget what the other, or Idaho or Wyoming. There's a big Western state that did a zoning atlas similar from this. And so we looked at kind of zoning codes throughout the state. Most are for small municipalities. If it's not a very, it's a pretty straightforward zoning code, filling it out should hopefully take just 1 to 2 hours. For a larger municipality, it'd take 2 to 3. Some places do have more zoning districts. We've had a few folks that are over 20 already, and not too many, but a few. And so that will take a little bit more time. So again, throughout the template, it's an Excel model, and it's designed to, we did try to make it relatively simple to fill out, but also so that we're collecting information consistently throughout the state. That'll allow us to be able to share that information and know that it's consistently throughout the state. So just to run through this relatively quickly, on that first tab, you're going to select your municipality from the drop-down menu. It is, again, on older versions of Excel, we tried to get this up to date. I would kill for more updated technology, but we're working on it, I promise. But you do have to scroll. You can't autofill. I'm working on autofill. But we do ask that you fill it out here, because if you click on this search button and find your municipality, that will fill out some of the files that are some of the sheets that follow. And so that will, for example, on this page, we choose Sleepy Hollow. I am not technically related to Katrina Van Tassel, but it makes me laugh whenever I see that. That is, if anyone's familiar with the legend of Sleepy Hollow, Washington Irving bought his house from my family. But here at Sleepy Hollow, we're asking you to, as if I was filling it out, but there might be a different contact person, their contact information, and then this information will fill out automatically. And so then on the zoning district list, you'll need a copy of the zoning code. These are public information. The vast majority of places do have their zoning code online in some shape or form. If not, it's still public information, but you might have to work with the planning office to get a copy. And so the zoning code, you'll start with a list of zoning districts. If there is no master list, you might have to work with the zoning map itself. But again, most of the ones that we've seen do have a master list. And then you would add, just fill this out with the names, right? So, the name of the district abbreviation. These are fairly, nearly basically every zoning code uses an abbreviation. And then this is a selection of a drop down of whether the district is the type of district, which is in column D. And so this is, again, will help us be able to categorize and understand what's going on throughout the state. And the categories are primarily residential, mixed residential, commercial, non-residential, an overlay, or a planned residential district. And so again, this is also similar to what is used by some of the national programs, such as the National Zoning Atlas, that'll also help us be able to use our information in comparison with other states as well, both to learn lessons and to teach them lessons. And so again, going to the third tab, this is where the bulk of the work is. And so the list, on the top part, this doesn't have a picture of this, but this should automatically populate. So here, for example, we had 3 zoning districts. So the first 3 columns will be filled out up at the top level. And the questions are always on the left side, and it should have frozen panes so you can scroll down. And then there's a number of questions about the zoning district. And so in general, it's again designed to be hopefully relatively straightforward. Yes or no questions, and a few number questions. The yellow cells are the ones that can be filled out. And we're asking that you fill out as much as relevant as possible. So some of this is where there might be some reading or research to be done. So we put this in kind of what is a typical order of the type of information that we're looking for. That also shows up in zoning codes, but as I said, every zoning code is different. So sometimes, the first question might be in section 4 and the third question might be in section 2. So with your own zoning code, you maybe need to read through it to find some of this information, but A, and B, not all of the information is necessarily relevant for each district or each zoning code. So we do ask that you fill out as much as is applicable and possibly can. And then to be able to flesh this out on the back end. And what the back end does is that, and this should automatically populate the summary, that the summary sheet in the Excel model will populate after that third sheet. So that should be a summary. You can take a look at that. That's not editable. We want the only edited part to be in the third tab. And what we'll use with this, and this is what we're working on kind of behind the scenes at the moment, we're still working on our GIS section, but the idea is that we'll be able to overlay the GIS map that is also submitted with the zoning template. Okay, I might pause again there. Karis, do you want to take a pause and we can take some questions about the zoning template to start before we get into the permit template?
And thank you to the folks who emailed me. The chat feature hadn't been enabled for everyone, but it should be now. So. There we go. All right. All right, this question, Kate. Wondering how to access the template.
So the templates, both of them should be on the Pro Housing Communities website. And after the webinar, we'll email around this presentation that has a link to the website. We'll email around both the presentation and the website itself. But that template it's an Excel document. Again, there's 2 Excel documents and that will be available on the website.
Someone's asking for a copy of the PowerPoint. If we could email a copy of the PowerPoint to all attendees. Yep,
we'll do that afterwards. Happy to.
And then a question. So the census tract of Newcomb, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Newcomb includes North Hudson. Sorry, the question got broken up. Can we be assured that the housing dashboard includes only Newcomb data?
So that's a great question. The housing dashboard on the governor's website right now, as we said, only is takes from the census. So the census data, every locality is, it's technically required, but mostly optional. Which is why it's slightly inconsistent throughout the state, not just our state, all states. And so, but that is that is our best data source. If the town of, and I believe it's Newcomb, if your locality has, or village, apologies, I'm not sure which, but if you're a village or a town and you have specific information, we are hoping to, or planning to update the permit information on that dashboard as we get it. But so that's a long way of saying if you submit the right information, we will update it on our website. But in general, we're starting with the census because we have that for everybody. I will also say that we are focusing on cities, towns, and villages because those are what are tracked in the census. If you are a hamlet, that does not generally, from what we understand, hamlets don't have that zoning oversight, and so also hamlets are not tracked as specifically in the census. So that's kind of why hamlets they're tracked by census tract, but we are focusing on villages, towns, and cities. What's next?
Let's see, another one. How do you enter the Whitehall zoning code?
Whole zoning code. So I'm not sure. Let's see. So I think that, the whole zoning code, generally what we have found is that the template has a room for 20 districts. That is sufficient for most places that we've worked with so far, but not all. We've definitely got some questions of maybe some place has 25 districts or has 30 districts. So then, in our long-term goal, is that you can submit this directly on the website and not in an Excel sheet. But in the short term, what we worked on to solve for that is just to have people fill out and to label them properly, to fill out basically two different, fill out the template 1 through 20, and then a second template that has 5 through, or 25 through 30. And then those will automatically populate the summary, and then we can update that on our back end. Eventually, we're again hoping to update that technology, but that's our workaround for the moment. I am not sure. So again, the zoning information is just for the specific information about the districts. We tried to limit it so it's not, zoning codes can be complicated and obtruse, so we wanted to make sure we got the relevant information in there. I'm not sure that answers your question. If not, then we can follow up again at the end.
I've got one easy one before digging into a couple others. How long after we submit our letters of intent will we hear back from someone on your end?
That's a great question. We are trying to respond back. So when you submit the letter of intent, we're trying to respond back, I would say within a week or two. This is partly because, again, we're bootstrapping our team here. So apologies if we have been delayed. And what we will get is you should get an initial response, and then you also should be getting an email from us that sends a link to what's the Procorum website. And if you haven't gotten that within a week, then feel free to please remind us again. So we're doing our very best. The holidays also kind of knocked us out a little bit, and so we're hoping to get those quickly.
All right, a question here. I have a specific question or questions on the template that I emailed. Should I wait for an answer or email it? Should I wait for an answer for my email or should I ask it here? And after we submit the 4 required documents, will we hear from you if there are any edits?
Those are great questions. I would say we hopefully should have enough time. So for the specific question, let me answer kind of this batch, and then we'll go through the housing permit template, and then which is pretty quick, and then hopefully we can have time at the end. I'm happy to talk it through. And that once you've submitted 4, sorry, what was the next question? We are also working through those. I just full disclosure, I think kind of our first round, we're still working through our process. And we hope that it will get faster over time. But some of the ones that we have received have needed edits, and so we'll start that communication process back and forth. And for the ones that are in good shape, we will let them know. But we're still trying to load everything into our back end. But yep.
On recertification, if we get all uploaded this week, will we make the next submission deadline? And if so, when will we need to then recertify with new spreadsheets?
That is also a great question. Again, this is the only reason I'm hesitating is that because this is our first year, I'm like, I don't know what happens if you submit in December. It's our first December to go through it. But my if you submit it in the next week, then we will work through it and work with you to make sure that as you apply for the next round of discretionary funding, that we either move through the edits and make sure that the agencies are notified. We probably still will need the 90 days, but again, we're hoping to speed that up as we get more into rhythm with our and work out the kinks of things like software. In terms of submitting for the next cycle, for the next quarter, I think that, and I think I saw one flashed on my screen quickly of, will you be notified to recertify? And I think we will send out notifications next year. Again, for the folks that are submitting towards the end of the year, I think what we will probably do is maybe if you have, so basically like if you submitted this month, it would be, was anything permitted in the month of December, right? If you submit at the beginning of December. So we will either have you submit just what was done in December, or if there wasn't anything done in December, which is possible, then to sort of to attest that nothing happened. And then, so again, the idea is that we want to have a complete picture of the full year. So we want to flesh out 2023. And then over the next year, we will, the next year in 2024, in 2025, we would want to get an update on the permitting for 2024. So we'll send a notification about that for the next year.
All right, just one more. Sorry, we just got another one, two more. We submitted the zoning and permitting forms about a month ago. When should we receive a response?
We were collecting all of them. We are hoping to have that by the end of the year is what we're aiming towards for at the moment. Yep.
And then last one, I might have missed this, but our municipality does not have a zoning map in GIS.
I feel like I have seen that email, and let's follow up. That one probably is a separate conversation. And I apologize for not getting back to you previously, but let's follow up on that and how we can figure out how to address that one. We have some ideas, but we want to chat with you about it.
All right, and I think that's it for now. I think we got all of them.
All right. So I will go quickly through the housing permit template. In some ways, this is easier. In some ways, it's harder than the zoning, like many things. And then we'll pause again for questions at the end. So again, the purpose of this, just going to start with like, why are we doing this? And as I mentioned, there is the census. This is the Census BPS building permit survey. So we also encourage you, if your team has not been filling this out, then we encourage you to do so that the census data matches the data that we have. But as I said, we did hear from a lot of folks that it may be up to our interpretation, or we're not looking at it in the way that we want to. And so the idea is that we can match these up. And also we want to give people credit. If you are building housing, then we want to make sure that we know that we want all of us in New York State to take credit for housing that has been built. And so this one, who should fill it out? So this one is also probably is likely to vary across municipalities, which I wish there was an easier answer. And so it's whoever manages that permitting. And the other work of this is that we are looking at planning and building permitting. And so those might be from different teams. It might be the same team, depending on the size or the structure of your municipality. But so we are looking at, the planning team might, whether it goes through the planning board or what are the submissions there and how is that tracked? And then the buildings department obviously would be once the planning approvals have been received, then they go forward with the buildings department. So we do know that lots of municipalities, and we've talked to folks and we've seen this, there are like a centralized database to track both of those phases of permits depending on the municipality. Certainly our goal, and we would, I know I keep coming back to technology, but we are chipping away at it. But so the long-term goal would be that you could just click a button eventually from your database and it would submit automatically into our system. And that would be significantly easier both for you and for us. Not quite there yet, but we're working on it. And so as a follow-up, as we work through this on this template at the moment, that we'd be happy to follow up with people to learn about if there is one centralized database that 90% of people use, if there is 8, whatever that is, that's our long-term goal. But in the short term, we are working with our Excel spreadsheets. This is similar to information both at California and New Jersey submit to track what's happening with the growth and compliance. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so every time I squeak, I'm like, oh, that's. I am much better. I lost my voice 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, that was one of the reasons we had to shift this back a little bit. Okay, so again, this one has a little bit more variation in terms of where the permits are found and where how they're categorized compared to a zoning code, which is a little bit more similar. Again, but going through it, this is done the same way to select your village, and on the housing permit template, it is particularly important to select from the drop down as opposed to to just typing it in, because on the second tab, this is going back to, we have used this is the picture of the second tab. So what's in white here is that this is the permit, just high level summary from what we've got from the census. And again, this is us showing what we have from the census information. And shows, so this is an example of, I believe, Sleepy Hollow. And so Sleepy Hollow did a lot of building in 2020, for example, and less building in 2022. So again, this is what's submitted to the census, that automatically updates. But we do also, this is the same format as the census, but we also, in these yellow cells, and this may be from your assessor's unit, this might be from, again, the code unit. We did leave that open because, going back to the idea that maybe the census has incorrect information, or you actually built more. And so we wanted to give everybody the opportunity to correct that information. And so these will update automatically. Right now, the previous growth rates for this is 0 because it hasn't been filled out. But so this is the previous, these are again, the qualifications for the certification according to the general rule, the criteria that we've laid out in the program. And so according to the census, for this example, this is hopefully to make it a little bit easier. So in the last year, Sleepy Hollow didn't, meet their downstate, so they would need a 1% growth rate. But over the past 3 years, because they had such a big year in 2020, then they would qualify for over 3% for sure. And so that means that this locality, once they submit all their information, they wouldn't need to pass a resolution. We would love if they would still pass the resolution, but it's not a requirement to get certified. And so even if they do certify do qualify, they do still need to fill out the next 2 tabs. So again, on the planning permits tab, the goal for this is that hopefully you should, if your team has a database, then you can run a query in there that hopefully will have, again, the tax ID number, the block and lot. If there are some specific things that your municipality doesn't track, you can let us know, but we are looking for this time information here. One other important piece, less for the planning permits, although also true for the planning permits, but particularly for the building permits, is that it's only permits that increase or decrease the net housing units. And so a lot of places you might have a building permit if you are adding an addition to your house that's for a new kitchen, or you're adding a new story for a new bedroom. We don't need to, and that could significantly increase the number of building permits that are in your system. We don't need to track those. The goal, again, of this is about housing specifically. So we are looking at the information of where it is increased or decreased. And so again, this is information that's similar to New Jersey. New Jersey tracks a lot of this a little bit more robustly. And so since they're our neighbors, we wanted to follow with them. But this is the information that should be in the permitting databases. There is a little bit more detail about each of these in the Word document that is also on the website that walks through the instructions. But if you have specific questions about a specific thing, then we can either talk that through or we can follow up. And again, similarly, if there, from this template should fill out on the summary table. Again, the long-term goal is that you can just submit it directly and you won't have to worry about any of this. But at the moment, this is just for a quick check to see that the information transferred. And then if you do have additional permits, as we said, our workaround solution in the short term is that to fill out, the first template, 1 through 20, I think we have more on this one, but 1 through 50. And then if there's 5 more, then it's 50 through 55 through that. Okay. Now that goes back to, this is our website. We're going back to where the templates were, and we will again email that around to everybody here. And then this is our email address, which is goes to our inboxes, and we are trying to get responses in as quickly as possible. So that is my deck. I feel like I can see it kind of in the side of my screen that there's a few more questions that came in. And so maybe I'll stop sharing so I can see them as well. And then I'm happy to talk through some more of the questions.
We stopped at the minute 12:38. Do you want me to read it out?
Let's see. I can see it now that I'm not sharing. I can see them in real time. Response zoning. Okay. So once certified, what are the benefits besides the extra points for the municipality other than extra points for certain grants? And what are the long-term requirements of a certified municipality? What is the catch? What are they really committing to? So there is no catch. This is a voluntary program. I think that the goal of the program is, as we said at the beginning, is to promote the benefits of creating more housing for New York State, which is certainly a local, regional, and statewide need. And so we want to, over the long term, as you said, we are learning about the program as we go. And so we are hoping to, be able to add more resources to the program over time. We're still working through what that might be. At the moment, where we started was the benefits are for the discretionary grants. If there's interest in the future to potentially add other funding sources, other technical resources, we are certainly talking to the governor's office about that. And I think if you have ideas about what would be useful for your locality, one of the ideas we've gotten is putting things like model zoning codes or model resolutions of ways to say you don't want to do, a massive thing, but actually ADUs do make sense in your locality. So can we give examples? And so we are working on that, some of that behind the scenes. But if there's other examples of ways that could be useful, we're happy to take those. But again, there's no catch. It's not designed to be a gotcha. The state wants to provide housing. Okay, so for the PDF of our zoning map, we probably will need eventually a GIS version, but we can follow up with your locality directly about ways if it's only a PDF to talk through who created the PDF and if we can work with them directly, or if we can work with our team. So we'll follow up with you directly on that. Building template. So there are many columns that are locked. Yes, so throughout the templates, if it's a yellow cell, then you can fill it out. It is a little bit confusing going back to that housing template that we did pre-fill out some of it. We do ask you to, we pre-filled it out. Those numbers were what we got from the census, which from what we understand should have come from your locality to the census previously. And so we would ask that you fill in the yellow columns, and if they're the same, which they entirely could be, then they'll be the same. But again, we also, we heard a lot from people that they've actually done more, and so we want to give people credit for that. But if it is the same, even if you fill it out, it should be the same. But yes, the yellow cells are the ones that should be filled out. Okay, interesting in the future to have certifications for counties. Yep. If a certain percentage of the municipalities achieve the certification, the economic development incentives comes from the county IDA. Want to have the certification, that totally makes sense. That's the type of feedback that is definitely helpful. We've heard that from a few other counties. I think that might be a good way to do it. I know that Ulster County has a similar program that they run on their own about also having pro-housing communities. That's actually a bit more, has more requirements than ours. And so I don't know if that will change that immediately, but we definitely will take that back and talk it through. Okay. Tab 4 can expand column F to expand the column. Okay, we'll write that one down and work on getting that one fixed. And then planning review board tab. And the commercial applications. Okay, so I think that's a helpful question. If any residential only goes to the building department, then when you submit it, maybe write a note to explain that. I think that if it doesn't, that explains that every residential only goes to the building permit, then that should be workable. We'll just let us know that officially in the submission. Submission ID, yep. And so, okay, so that's a great question. The submission ID is already populated. That was to help us on our back end. That's a good flag. So you can use ours. If you do have specific, I think there is another column. Sorry. Yes, so in terms of a planning ID number, we would assume that we're just using the lot number, and so that will be helpful for us as we go forward. And then for planning permits, for current applications, for this initial submission, we are looking for the summary of the past 5 years. And then as we move forward, when we're talking about what you submit over every year in March, that would just be the recent ones. Okay. I'm always told one of my good friends is a teacher. She's like, you gotta wait for people to come up with their questions. So we'll sit just for a second. Okay. So I don't know if that's long enough. Hopefully that was long enough. But if not, hopefully one of the other reasons we wanted to do this, the webinar is to again walk through the documentation, explaining our thinking a little bit, which hopefully will help. And also so you can see our faces. And so now you know even more who Karis and I are. We are definitely trying to respond as quickly as possible. And again, thanks for your patience. And we are happy to, and we appreciate the feedback. All of the feedback is great. Like I said, we're still learning in a good way about how this program works. We tried to make it accessible, but even the feedback we've gotten on the templates so far has been useful for us to try and make it better. And so we're definitely looking for more of that. So feel free to give us feedback, and then we will continue to be in touch. And so we have access to the recording. Our goal is to get the recording up on our website. It probably will not be up today, but in the next week or so, we'll have both the deck and then the recording available for both people that attended, but also if some of your team couldn't attend and you think it'd be helpful, we'd be happy to share it. And so again, in terms of next steps, we also are hoping to do a version of this for folks that haven't submitted a letter of intent yet, that are curious about the Pro-Housing Communities program. So again, similarly, if you want to email us about feedback on what would be useful, we're happy to hear that as well. Great. Provide our website again. Yes. I'm just going to pull up our. Okay, so one more quote. When the first rounds of municipalities receive their certification, will be like a press release. Yeah, that's the goal. That is above my head, just so you know. And it's certainly the goal. That's not an excuse. That's just more. I've actually been working here for tomorrow is my 2-year anniversary, and so as I have learned about how that works. But yes, that is absolutely the goal, to let everybody know who is a pro-housing community. Hopefully you can see. Yeah, so this is the Pro-Housing Community website here on the website. as I said, this is my own shortcut, is that if you just Google New York State pro-housing communities, this website also comes up. But this is the information, so you guys can take it as well. Okay, now I can't see the chat anymore once I have this up, so. Okay, thank you. Spreadsheets are intense. The goal is to, thank you, I appreciate that. We base them also, again, we always took from other people. Massachusetts has a similar program. Hopefully, we actually tried to make them as streamlined as possible so they're easy for you to use. We are trying to think a lot about our users, which is you. And so that is absolutely why that we are looking for that feedback to make them better. We still need the information, but to make it as easy as possible, which is why I keep daydreaming about being a direct submission, but one step at a time. Okay. All right, we just finished a touch early. Oh, and Kara's put in the chat, which is also probably even a better idea. Thank you so very, very much for participating, for your feedback, for the questions. It's really exciting to create a new program, and so we're excited to work with you as we go forward. All right, I think that's it. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of the afternoon.